Hi everyone, welcome to my review of Mission Impossible 3, directed by J.J.Abrams in 2006. So, another one of the Mission Impossible films, watched again tonight. And this is a rewatch, of course. I've seen all of them at least once. Now, when this one came out, I'll quickly say, I got it on DVD and stuff, and didn't love it, and I thought maybe on a rewatch, because I haven't seen it for quite a few years, and I'd seen it a couple of times back then. And I tried to watch it again at that, after a couple of the watches around that time, when I got it on DVD and stuff, and I didn't really. I was just basically desperately trying to kind of love it like I did the second one when I was little, when I was younger, and I just never could. And of course, the kind of the same thing happened with one, although not so much. I did really like a lot of the stuff in one. It's just I didn't understand the actual plot and everything like that. Of course, this is much more straightforward. They all are, but the fact of this is that I tried to watch it, and I just didn't love it, And of course, I thought maybe it would be the same sort of reevaluation that I had with the first one. Although I did have my doubts about this one on a rewatch. Haven't seen it for many years, and of course, along with two, this is the least popular, you could say. Of course, 2 by miles is the least popular. But yes, Mission Impossible 3. So J.J. Abrams, I'm not a hater on him because I actually love The Force Awakens. I think it's a masterpiece. There we go. And it's probably not going to be reviewed on my channel at any point soon, the Star Wars films. That's not. I don't see the point in reviewing Star Wars for quite some time. Maybe the original trilogy, but yes, I think it's a masterpiece, and I'm not the sort of person that hates on J.J. Abrams like that. So whatever I say about this film has got nothing to do with that. I am judging this just on its own as a film, and I do actually like J.J. Abrams. In terms of The Force Awakens, I thought he'd done a great job. This is his first film, feature film. Of course, Tom Cruise and everyone produced, and he was always looking for someone to bring something new to the franchise. And every film's different really until 5 and 6, kind of 4, the other ones that are, it's what the franchise is now, you could say. It's just kind of refining itself in many ways. But yes, the film, I watched it, of course, tonight, and there's a reason. I think I can see the reasons why I didn't love it, because I still don't really think too much of it, and of course, it's quite popular overall, and as many say it's one of the best. Of course, many say it's one of the worst. It's kind of controversial, but it didn't do as well at the box office, I don't think, as the other ones really. And yes, the opening scene is pretty stunning. If it wasn't for the camera work, which is terrible, and let me tell you, the camera work throughout this film is, for me, awful. I just don't like, in general, I could do without shaky cam, really, in the films ever, but there is occasions where shaky cam can be done really well, of course. But I think this is definitely, first of all, a kind of copy in that sense of the Bournes that came before it. In the shaky cam, the way that even in dialogue scenes, the camera does kind of shake for no reason, really. And it's just really cheap and uncontrolled shaky cam. I did not like it throughout the film. It's one of the things that just completely butchered a lot of the stuff in the film, and especially the action scenes. It could have been a lot better if it wasn't the shaky cam. But yes, that's the least really of the worries of this film. The opening scene is great, well, almost great. Seymour Hoffman plays the villain, and of course you see what happens in the opening scene is, they go back to that, well over halfway through the film. It's kind of one of them, then there's flashbacks kind of stuff to kind of kickstart the film. And Seymour Hoffman, check out, a lot of the PTA films, and there's so many films where really it just shows that Seymour Hoffman was one of the greatest actors of all time, and it's great that he got a chance to play a villain in like a franchise like this. It's a shame that he was kind of underused at times, and he wasn't given the best of material. But he's great in this film. He's probably the best thing about the film, to be honest, I would say. And the stretches though where he's not really in it at all. and that's when the film, for the most part, is actually it's low when he's not in it because it's just so good, and it's not really anything to do with the script, which of course Abrams would work on as well. It's just the fact that he's so good, really. He kind of elevates it. Tom Cruise, though, in the opening scene was great, and Michelle Monaghan plays his love interest in the film, and I don't like her in this film. Unfortunately, I don't care for the romance, her character, or the performance for me. But yes, she was in this, and the opening scene is really, really good. It kind of gives kickstarts it with a bang, and it goes to the credits, which aren't too good. But yes, then we kind of, this film was just trying to, what they were trying to do here was bring humanity to, Ethan Hunt. Yeah, of course, like they've done with Bond, of course, really beginning with, well, it was prevalent, of course, in From Russia with Love, but proper intentional was ones like On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where they properly tried to delve right into the humanism of it. Of course, there's many franchises that do this, and it works really well. Unfortunately, because of the melodramatic kind of kind of feel of this, stuff, the home life and everything, it fails. And it would have been great if it was great writing and everything and acting with the side characters and everything, but it wasn't, and it wasn't handled in a good way. So in that sense, the one that it tries to do that, it just kind of fails, and it's kind of like, I'd rather it go back to 2, where it's all out action. Of course, it's not just an action film, the second one, but it just works so much better. So yeah, I do not think that the second one's the worst, which everyone says. I think this is the worst, to be honest, actually, off memory. But yes, the opening scene is the best part of the film. From then, it's downhill for me. This is just my opinion, and you've got some really, really, for me, cringy and pretty failed melodramatic stuff. The party scene. What is that? That was really just, I did not know what was going on there. It was very, very off-putting, and just, it was awful acting, very cringy, cheesy in a bad way. I think Mission Impossible 2, it's cheesy, the corniness, in a good way. And, if you don't know what that means, I'm not going to sit here explaining, maybe another video, but the type of cheesiness that is actually kind of just classic cheesiness. And this isn't. It's kind of just awkward. And, the party scenes are really, really just very uncomfortable and not well done. It just feels very cheap. It feels like a really bad TV episode in that sense. And it's just, Michelle Monaghan, I don't like her performance. I don't think it was handled well, though, really. That's the main thing. It was just very, very melodramatic, cringy, one-note sort of romance they had. So even though that, what you see in the first scene, the opening, even though it was so well done, I didn't really care, after a while, of this kind of relationship. So, that was a thing that kind of brought my enjoyment down and my interest in the film. And of course, you've got Aaron Paul as well. He's not good in this, unfortunately, in a small role. But that whole party scene and everything, the scenes in the apartment, with Tom Cruise, they're trying to, make him seem like he can be an everyday man, really fails for me. I don't think this is necessary. And it's kind of annoying that they've done this to this amazing action hero, and the spy, they're trying to make him normal, and I can understand how that can be done well, but it just kind of makes it bland, and him bland, in this film, and just takes the kind of mythic qualities away from this this character, and this kind of franchise in this film, and you've got some returning characters, Luther once again. He's one of the things that kind of brings this film up again. He's great. The banter between him and Ethan Hunt, the two characters, is great. Although, of course, some of the lines are a bit crummy, and the ending with him is a bit out of character. But throughout the film, really, if he wasn't in this film, and Philip Seymour Hoffman wasn't in the film, it wouldn't have been a like from me, unfortunately. I think I can give this film a bare like. It's very, very on the line of me not liking it. But yes, the character of Luther is always great when he's in the films, and he adds a lot of energy of the film to the film, and wherever it kind of it would have been lacking. I think this is a very, very flat film at times, and just doesn't have the energy or the style. That's another thing. Mission Impossible 2, for all what people say, it's got some style. It really has. It's very over the top, but the style there is consistent. The tone is consistent, and it's visually exciting, I feel, and People call that generic. I think this is the most generic. And I think 2 actually had some unique qualities. This one really was generic. It was the most generic action of all of them, and it was the one that kind of brought the melodrama to it as well, and it just didn't have an interesting plot. It's this rabbit's foot or whatever, and it's kind of just a MacGuffin for the whole film, and that's really it, other than the fact that his wife was kidnapped, you see at the beginning. That's the only thing that drives the film, and you don't know what it's about, which can be done perfectly in cinema. Hitchcock, Say No More, he can do that. He could do that in so many of his films, but in this it doesn't work because the characters for the most part aren't interested. The newcomers, the new agents that he recruits along with Luther, are bad. They're not well written, and there's a point where there's tries to be exposition for them, the female character, and they don't even go through with it. They kind of just cut it off with another action bit. But I was just thinking, no, let's just move on. I don't care about these characters. I don't want any exposition. It was too little, too late anyway. But they were just awful. And just there's no sense of charm in this film really, for the most part, apart from with Luther. And that's really just his performance. It's not really to do with the writing too much. But Lawrence Fishburne's in this film, and he's got some funny lines actually. Again, he kind of elevates it because it's Lawrence Fishburne, and he's always entertaining. But some of the stuff there was very, very uninspired and quite. I think the way that this film was shot in them scenes, the dialogue scenes, the briefings and that were very, very poor. It's prevalent throughout a lot of the film, but the kind of the way that it's just the camera just moves randomly, and it just kind of it's very, very obvious, and it's kind of so off-putting, and it's not confident direction. I don't feel personally. I don't think this was confidently directed. It was at times safe, but at times just messy. This film, you can tell I don't really like it too much. There is some things that save it. Some of the action is decent. Philip Seymour Hoffman, whenever he's on screen, is electric. He is brilliant in this film. Tom Cruise, although he's the worst that he's been in the entire franchise, he's still good. He's fine. I do like, of course, I love Tom Cruise, so I did like him, in this film, but it's just, it wasn't given too much to go with, really that interesting. And so the other side characters mostly aren't that good. The soundtrack was okay. It wasn't that good. Weakest of the franchise for me. I actually think 2's got the best soundtrack. It's just there's bits where it's like it plays the song "We Are Family." It's just so off-putting. Why was this played? It was just there's a lot of tonal breaks for attempt of humour. It didn't work really. There was a really good actually. One of the good sequences was when they do the face swap with Philip Seymour Hoffman, and they kind of there's this guard that comes into the bathroom. You'll know which one I'm on about. That was really, really good. I thought that was probably the best sequence of the film for the most part, until the very end, which was decent action and stuff. But yeah, that was really good. And I think, as I said, the camaraderie throughout with Luther and Ethan Hunt is really good. It's enjoyable when it's there. There was also a good scaling the wall scene, but then an awful line, really for what I say is the worst line of the franchise, when he says about Humpty Dumpty sat on a great wall, and he kind of just looks almost at the camera, Tom Cruise, and I'm just, what happened there? I had to rewind it. That was dreadful. Just so off tone. Why was that? Why was that used? So let's just get on to in general the shaky cams and stuff. There's a scene where Philip Seymour Hoffman is giving his all. He's acting his arse off, and he's just so good. And then there's a bit, the camera just moves up for no reason, and it cuts his whole face off. It cuts his expressions and everything off. And it's right at the pivotal moment when he was, like an outburst, and in the fret. And it just really annoys me. I think J.J.Abrams kind of just tainted this film with his direction, and that's just me being honest. And as I've said, he really perfected The Force Awakens. I think it's a masterpiece, but here he really just weakened the film. It already wasn't good material as it was. The script and everything. Of course, he had input, but I just don't think this film is. I think it's very underwhelming. I've never liked it too much. I can say I only just like it, and that's because it has got some some decent action, some one or two sequences I did enjoy quite a lot, and just general some banter throughout. And yeah, Philip Seymour Hoffman, of course. You know, without these sort of things, I wouldn't have really have liked it at all too much. You know, I don't think it's a bad film. As I've said before, I don't think any of the Mission Impossibles are bad, but I do think it's very very underwhelming by the standards of the franchise, and you know it's very very just dead on average. I'd have to give this film a 60%, and very close to being mediocre for me. But it was saved by some moments, as I said, and generally, of course, it wasn't bad. It did have some bad moments. To wrap up, you know, I think this is it's the most generic for the franchise. It's the one with that Tom Cruise is at his worst in the franchise, although still decent. You know, it has some saving factors. You know, Luther, the character, and of course Philip Seymour Hoffman. You know, some sequences throughout, and you know, just generally, it's not never reaches the awful level. You know, but I think the camera work throughout is disgraceful. It really taints the action. It could have been even better, the action. I think the dialogue scenes could have been a lot better. It took away a lot of the time. It wasn't needed, the shakiness. It just almost feels like they couldn't hold the camera steady. It's not as if it's for an effect. You know, as much as I don't, you know, think that the Bourne films, the Paul Greengrass style is, you know, necessary. I think that at least he went with it. You know, an ultimatum. He kind of, he did kind of bring something in that sense. He did go ahead confidently with his shaky cam stuff, but in this it feels very just weak, amateur. It feels like they just couldn't hold the camera right, the cameramen and stuff. It's just, that's how I feel, and it just took away from the experience throughout most of the film, really. I think that, of course, the romance and everything is melodramatic. It's not done well. I hated the wedding scene. It was disgraceful for me personally. You know, it's just very, very cringy, these parts. I didn't really care for that at all. But, you know, it has some moments of camaraderie that's quite, you know, warm and everything. And it's got some Simon Pegg as well. I think his appearances are welcomed. Of course, he's in it a lot more now. You know, it was kind of just it was kind of a, you know, a tease for what's to come. But he was really good when he was in it. So, you know, it's got some good things in it. Some really good moments for definite. You know, it's got that sequence, as I've said, with the face swapping, and really every scene that Philip Seymour and Tom Cruise are in together is really good. You know, I will say as well, the final act, there's some really good hand to hands. I really liked the moment where, well, a certain moment, you know, it was touch and go with something there at the end, and yeah, I kind of like some of the actual ending montage kind of stuff with Lawrence Fishburne. So yeah, you know, there's things to like. Some really good stuff, but it's littered throughout. Overall, I do think this is underwhelming by the standards. I think it's a 60%, as I've said, very very average, almost in a mediocre mark for me. You know, it just doesn't do anything special really, apart from Philip Seymour's performance. But you know, that's not that only goes so far. But yes, I like I say, I kind of like this film, but I really don't care for it at all too much, and it's certainly my least favourite, I would say now. Yeah, this will be appearing at the bottom when I do my ranking. Just very generic a lot of the time, and just awful, you know, camera works, not very good direction for the most part. Just a lot of the stuff is messy and confusing. It kind of just hurts the eyes, and yeah, it's just not got an interesting plot really. It's just kind of a MacGuffin, kind of not really done in a interesting way, and you know, it has some good sequences, as I've said, but really this is the low point for me of the franchise. That's just my personal thoughts, of course. I don't dislike it. It's just yeah, it does bug me a lot, you know, and there's stretches of it that are quite boring. I just think you know, the style of the film as well really let it down. But yes, that's my thoughts on Mission Impossible 3. Directed by J.J.Abrams, and his debut film, feature film. So yes, next up will be, of course, Ghost Protocol, and then we're doing Rogue Nation. Ghost Protocol will probably be Friday that I'll be reviewing that. We're watching it, and then the review will be up, you know, probably Saturday technically, as always. But yes, I really look forward to that again, because I love that film. I'll say it now. it's a stunning film. It's when the franchise came back again. They were slowly, for me, dipping from 1 to 2 to 3. They just got worse each time, and this one was particularly quite lifeless at times. And that's the only time where where one of them has been quite lifeless and doesn't have the energy that it needs. But yes, thanks for watching my review. And I didn't dislike it, but here's my least favourite. And that's a spoiler for my ranking. Mission Impossible 3. Thanks for watching.